Welcome back to the couch, you amazing, twisted mother lovers. I pile myself with research every week to bring you the most ultimate, twisted story I possibly can. And remember, everything I cover is based on true events. So go ahead and pull that twisted couch up and invite your friends back over because it is time for me to again take you on a twisted journey into the unknown in today's episode of Twisted Couch Talk. Welcome back to the couch, you guys. But first off, I would like to apologize for the ending of last episode. Okay, after the top twisted recap, I had went with the queen of the twist, my girlfriend, and we went to go eat some delicious food. And we got there, and Eileen Warnos popped up out of nowhere and gave me a jug of that fire water and told me to pound that shit down. And I did. I didn't have a choice, so I had pounded it down. And yeah. I chugged down that sweet fire water. I came back maybe a little bit too intoxicated. I had finished the recording. So I apologize for that. I know I had slurred my words a little bit, so we won't do that again. But I went back and I had edited a little drunk, and I left a lot of good stuff in there that I typically would have taken out. So I apologize. And I did yell quite a bit, so I apologize for that. But if you loved it, then I take it back. But enough of all that. Welcome back. It is Friday, and you know why you guys came and sat on the couch. You're here to listen to some twisted stuff. And I would like to thank you all for coming back like you guys do. It's so cool. You guys just keep coming back every week. And I can see that you guys are coming back every week. It's just so amazing, guys. Keep it up. It's so awesome. But I would like to give a huge twist head shout out to Austin Baker. The man, the myth, the legend. Thanks to that twist head, I was able to get my podcast on iTunes and everywhere else. He had given me an iTunes device, or he had given me an Apple device, free. He just donated it to me in the show, and it allowed us to get out there even better. And due to that, now we have our country shout outs real quick. Finland, Canada, United Kingdom. Thank you guys so much for giving the couch a chance. Come sit on it. It's comfy, it's warm, and it's scary. So I hope you guys have a great time on this journey with us. But now my podcast is available everywhere, and YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube page. But I'm not on Pandora, and we'll talk about that later. I'm about done with Pandora. But Facebook, don't forget to follow the Facebook page, you guys. You got to get over there, because that's the only way you're going to stay in the now. Because this episode's coming out just a little late because of technical difficulties and all that. If you guys are on Facebook, you'll know about it. So go over to the Facebook page, get over there, pick up your sledgehammer, and do the little wind up, twined up, and smash that like button. Go over to the Facebook page and look for that beautiful, sexy follow button. The shiny one that says, follow me here. You know what I mean? Yes. Get over there and smash that button. Lastly, Patreon. I have a new Patreon, and it goes from $3 to $20, and you pick from 4 tiers. What kind of twist head are you? Go check it out. It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. Also, there's a PayPal now. You can now donate to my PayPal, Twisted Couch Talk. Put it in the email. You guys know what you need to do for PayPal. Donate at any time. You guys donate to the show. There's going to be shout outs. I will give you guys shout outs at the end and everything. It'll be fun. But enough of all that business crap, because you know why you guys came here. But I do have a question. I have one question. No, a couple. Have you ever been exposed to radiation at extremely high levels? I'm talking so much that your skin would develop painful boils or even begin to melt off your body. If so, did you gain superpowers? Did you become superhuman? Well, sadly, everybody I'm going to be talking about, they didn't gain superpowers. They would either develop cancer, deformalities, or they even died altogether due to so much radiation exposure. Because just like Homer Simpson, these people fail all over the place with safety protocol, and the ultimate outcome is an explosion. What kind of explosion? From what, where, who? Well, let's hop on a plane and take a 21-hour flight. Yeah, it's going to be a long one. Bring your pillows and your blankies and your movies. Because we're getting on this flight to the Ukraine, and we're going to find out what exactly happened to cause the horrific Chernobyl meltdown. Okay, so in 1986, Chernobyl, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. And for the ones who don't know, the Soviet Union was a socialist state that spanned Eurasia during its existence from 1922 to 1991. Basically, it was just a type of government, long story short. And Chernobyl holds the record, the biggest explosion in history. And multiple people had died, leaving thousands of homes in ruin. The first nuclear reactor in the area was built in 1977. And the nuclear power plant was looking like a gold mine to the USSR Express. But nobody would have been able to predict what would happen, even though they had performed this task many a times. At 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986, the plant had started conducting a routine test to see how the plant would function if they had ever lost power. This is a routine test that they performed multiple times, and it would last for under a minute. In all actuality, it would only take 36 seconds to perform, but for the employees, it would feel like a lifetime. This is a normal routine that they have conducted many a times without fail, but it did ultimately backfire. It would also go on to consume the workers and the surrounding areas to their fate. So they had to shut the plant down to conduct this test thoroughly. So the test and inspection had included checking to see how the steam turbines would transfer to the backup generators. And they would also obviously search for faulty switches and buttons and change them out if they had needed. But during the experiment, Reactor 4 would experience rays of output power, and this was to be expected. But then a shit ton of steps were overlooked and would lead to everybody's demise. The accident had released massive amounts of radioactive material into the environment. Emergency crews responding to the accident used helicopters to pour sand and boron onto the reactor's debris. The sand was to stop the fire and additional release of radioactive materials. The boron was to prevent an additional nuclear reaction. The Chernobyl accident in 1986 was overall the result of a flawed reactor design and was also operated by highly trained personnel who missed one important step. 25-year-old Leonid Toptonov was the senior reactor control engineer for about 2 months. He had been working the night of the explosion and oversaw reactor number 4. He was highly trained and had knew more than everybody else had and had done this procedure many of times successfully. But he had missed an important step when he took control over the 4th reactor, and it had caused the power output to harshly fall. So in result, he had suggested to his superior to shut down the test completely and just to start it over. But his boss, by the name of Anatoly Moskvin, wow, okay, I guess the Russian dominant, no, okay, I said that wrong. His name is Anatoly Dadlov. Who would have thought that we would have 2 Anatolys that you would end up despising on the show? You're going to despise this guy, and you're going to find out why. I mean, I just want to beat his face in, and you're going to you'll see why. You'll see why. So after Leonid had suggested to shut everything down and start over, his boss had threatened to strip him of his title if he didn't push forward and increase the power to continue the test. And as expected, Toptonov had just stared back at him, knowing if he didn't do anything, everything will go south extremely fast. So he did the only thing he could and balled up his fist and punched his boss in the nose. His boss looked at him from the floor, covering his face with blood running between his fingers, and Toptonov just stared back at him and stepped over him and hit that damn kill switch, saving the fucking day. Okay. No, that didn't happen. I wish it would have, because that would have stopped the explosion from happening and nobody would have died. He would just go on to listen to his supervisor and push on. And honestly, I feel that would have saved a lot of lives. Kind of like the Titanic. When the captain gets the report of all the icebergs in the area, he decided to speed up and not slowing down, causing the horrific outcome of the Titanic to sink to the bottom of the ocean, where she remains to this day. And all he would have had to do is slow down. But he wanted to get to America fast and get it and be the fastest one to do it. So, in search of fame, thousands perished. It's just so frustrating. And it's kind of like this boss. This boss was pushing forward because he was trying to take the next supervisor position. He had risked everybody's life to get a title or a reward. It's just so frustrating. Okay, So the workers then started inserting control core rods into the reactor. The rods had been made from boron carbide so that it would reduce the reactor's power output. After they were done inserting the rods, it was discovered that the graphite was inside the core of the rod, causing the reactor to continue increasing power. To add to all of that, there was a huge surge of power that caused the immediate steam explosion. The steam explosion had released about 5% of the radioactive reactor's core, sending it through the ceiling and into the environment, and would end up depositing radioactive materials in many parts of Europe. Shortly after the first explosion, there was a second explosion due to the buildup of hydrogen from the prior steam explosion. Toptanov, the senior reactor control engineer, he had said if he knew his workers were shoving rods into the reactor, he would have stopped them and shut it down immediately, regardless of what his supervisor would have said. Due to all these twisted events, a large mushroom cloud of fire, steam, and huge amounts of radiation went up as high as a kilometer or just under a mile into the air and covered the surrounding areas, contaminating them to their fate. Also, here's an interesting fact. Reactors like these are supposed to have dome-type structures built around them. The dome would be made of steel and concrete to contain an explosion if one had ever occurred. If they would have just done that, honestly, it may not have been as bad as it is now, and we wouldn't have lost anybody. Nobody would have died. Also, 2 of the Chernobyl plant workers died due to the explosion on the night of the accident. And it's also said that one of the bodies remain in the plant to this day. They never went in to recover him due to the extreme amount of toxic radiation. But they wouldn't be the only victims. Also, around 30 people total, including operators and firemen, would meet their fate soon after due to the radiation and getting radiation poisoning. Acute radiation syndrome affected originally 237 people on site and involved the people involved with the cleanup. But after more tests were done, it was later confirmed it was actually 134 cases. Now, if you don't know, acute radiation syndrome is also known as radiation sickness, and it's an acute illness caused by radiation of the entire body at a high dose of penetrating radiation in a very short period of time, usually in just a matter of minutes. After the accident, officials closed off the area with a 30-kilometer or 18-mile radius of the plant, except for the employees with proper credentials would be allowed in. Within a few weeks of the accident, more workers subsequently died between 1987 and 2004, but they say their deaths cannot necessarily be attributed to the radiation exposure. But come on, you know, honestly, it probably is. The Soviet government evacuated about 115,000 people from the most heavily contaminated areas in 1986, and another 220,000 people in the following years. So in total, that's about 350,000 people were evacuated as a result of the accident. But sadly, people are still looking for resettlement areas far enough away to be at a safe distance from the accident site. A few weeks after the accident, the crews completely covered the damaged unit in a temporary concrete structure to further limit the release of radioactive material. Chernobyl cleanup eventually required about 600,000 workers. Only a small fraction of these workers were exposed to high levels of radiation. The government agencies continued to monitor the cleanup and the recovery workers' health very closely. The Soviet government also cut down and buried about a square mile of forest near the plant to reduce radioactive contaminations at the nuclear site. The radiation blast had turned the trees into a light reddish color in the middle of summer, looking like it's fall. The next task was cleaning up the radioactivity at the site so that the remaining 3 reactors could be restarted. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You just had an explosion and oh my God, just so much bad has happened from this, and you want to restart that's just ridiculous. That makes me mad. But there is some good news. They did eventually shut them down for good, with the last reactor closing in 1999. And thank God, because I wouldn't want them running those fuckers after that either. So in all, about 5 million residents are living in contaminated areas. Although they are exposed to small amounts of radiation, it's not considered to be a lethal dose. But a lot of children and many adolescents of the area in 1986 drank milk contaminated with radioactive iodine, which had delivered huge doses to their thyroid glands. But not many off-site suffered from acute radiation effects, although a significant amount of children were diagnosed with thyroid-type cancers. But it is uncertain how many are affected or died from the exposure to the radiation. Also, a large area of Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, and even beyond those places are contaminated with varying doses of radiation. So about 6,000 thyroid cancer cases have been detected among these children. 90% of these children were successfully treated, thank God, but 15 children of 3 different areas had died from thyroid cancer by 2005. In 2018, about 20,000 cases of thyroid cancer were diagnosed from 1991 to 2015. Also, in patients who were 18 and under at the time of the accident. So they were trying to cover it up by saying available evidence does not show any effect on the number of pregnancy outcomes, delivery complication, stillbirths, or overall health of the children among the families living in the most contaminated areas. But I want you guys to check out this video I posted in my description. They have pictures and evidence that shows extreme side effects to newborns, children, and animals. Many of these children have extreme deformalities, and it's really difficult and sad to watch, so viewer discretion advised. Children suffer from stunt growth development, causing limbs and toes, fingers, and hands to stop growing or developing altogether. They would also suffer from having enlarged heads, but their brains had been 3/4 the size, and their brain growth and development is minimal or not at all. Animals would suffer by being born with extreme disfiguration. There was a pig that had been born with a deformed face, missing eyes and nose. It looks horrifying. There was also a deformed pig with about 6 legs. It even affected insects, fish. As a matter of fact, these guys go out there and they go catfishing, and they catch a catfish that is averagely 5 times the size and contains extreme amounts of radiation. And now, overall, the plant is now overrun with animals such as wild dogs, wolves, bears, foxes, bison, deer, beavers, moose, and badgers, and even boars. And if you guys hear children in the background, it's nap time. People are grumpy, and I have 6 children here. So I apologize if there's any background noise. Also, but back to the doctors in the area. They had thought it would be in the best interest for the mothers to have abortions, not knowing what the true outcome would be. And back then, if a doctor told you anything, you just have to listen to them. I mean, you couldn't just Google it and figure out what you need to do. So hundreds of thousands of mothers continued with the abortions. Robert Gale, a hematologist who treated radiation victims after the accident, he had said that of abortions were more than 1 million that had been undertaken in the Soviet Union and Europe. There are also psychological impacts on the residents and everyone that was evacuated from the disaster, including high rates of depression, alcoholism, and anxiety, overall potential health effects. And on top of all of that, it took over a week for them to tell the public what happened and that they were exposed to extreme radiation. And they tried to cover it up. They would tell the people to avoid certain areas without telling them why. And they also even went as far as cutting phone lines in the area to stop the spread of the news. But little did they know they would end up on this twisted ass couch because it came worldwide news. Everybody found out. So, okay, let's go ahead and talk about the reactors just a little bit. Units 1 and 2 were constructed between 1970 and 1977, while 3 and 4 were of the same design, but they were completed in 1983. 2 more reactors were under construction at the site of the time of the explosion. This area of the Ukraine is described as woodland with a low population, about 3 kilometers away from the reactor, or 1.1 miles, in the new city of Pripyat, where there were about 50,000 people living. Pripyat, I'm probably saying that wrong, Pripyat was a community for people who worked at the power plant. The workers would move their families to this community when they became employed. So the 2 that were under construction were boiling light water reactors, with 2 loops feeding steam directly to the turbines without interfering with the heat core exchanger. So water was pumped to the bottom of the fuel channels, boiled as it progresses up to the pressure tubes. producing steam, which feeds two 500 MWE turbines. The water reacts as coolant and provides the steam used to drive the turbines. The vertical pressure tubes contain zirconium, alloy, clod, uranium, dioxide fuel around which the cooling water flows. The extension of the fuel channels penetrate the lower plate of the cover plate of the core, and they are welded to each. A specially designed refueling machine allows fuel bundles to be changed without shutting down the reactor altogether. The moderator controls the function of which it slows down neutrons to make them even more efficient in producing fission in the fuel and graphite surrounding the pressure tubes. Now, if you want to know exactly how they all work and want a little bit more information, check the links below. It's all there and you can learn all about it. But overall, due to the explosion, the accident caused the largest uncontrolled radioactive release into the environment ever recorded for any civilian operation, and large quantities of the radioactive substance were released into the air continuously for about 10 days. Wow, 10 days of nonstop, just more radiation just pouring and pouring out into the environment. Excuse me. I had to get a drink. Okay. So the casualties include firefighters who attended the initial fires on the roof of the turbine building. The doses received by the firefighters who died were estimated range up to 20,000 mgy, and 27 firefighters had died due to radiation sickness. One of the firemen that risked his life by the name of Vasily Intinko. He was one of the first of many to arrive to the explosion site, and just at 25 years of age, ran into the building and began fighting to put out these flames from hell, not knowing what he was really getting himself into. He was living in Pripyat, Ukraine, when he received his summons to help with the fire. So he and many other firemen would rush to the fire geared up in your typical fire equipment. Had they known about the radiation, they could have grabbed the proper equipment to put out the toxic flames, and they more than likely would have survived. They had arrived at 1:28 a.m., just 5 minutes after that horrible explosion. It took a while, about 4 hours, to completely put out the flames while using sand and dirt to extinguish these unimaginably hot flames. However, the flames inside the reactor's core would refuse to be extinguished and would continue to burn for just a little over 2 weeks. These heroic men had no idea that every second that they were in there, they were just sealing their fate more and more. He had ended up dying 2 weeks after due to severe radiation poisoning. His passing wasn't easy. In fact, he started to make an unbelievable recovery, and instead of being incapacitated to his bed, he had in fact stood up when his wife went to visit him, and he would walk over to her and give her 3 carnation flowers that he left and kept underneath his pillow. His wife had even gotten her hopes up, saying, honestly, seemed like his recovery was going great and would take some time, but he was doing great. These would be the last flowers she would ever get from her amazing, heroic husband. Horribly, he was actually burning from within due to the extreme radiation exposure. His doctor also said that his nervous system and his skull were extremely damaged. His wife would go on saying his skin began drying and cracking and peeling on his arms and legs. She would go on to say that he started becoming covered in huge, painful boils. And when he would turn his head and look up at her, clumps of hair would be resting on his pillow where his head had just been. The burns had started to come to the surface all over his body, also inside his mouth and on his tongue and cheeks. They had started off as small lesions, and then over a very short period of time, they grew massively. Then the infected surfaces of his skin would start peeling off in layers, just like the guy off of Austin Powers and Goldmember. Except you don't want to eat this skin. You just want to request your skin box and leave it in there and store it for later until the radiation is all dissipated so you can eat that salty, tasty skin. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there and lighten the mood just a little bit because God, that is so sad. I couldn't imagine seeing my girl like that. It would break my heart. The overall color of his body and face were blue, red, and gray-brown. And honestly, this part had made my heart melt, and I thought it was fucking adorable. His wife had spoken to him playfully to uplift his spirits, making comments about his hair loss, saying, "At least you don't have to comb your hair anymore, love," and flashing him a big, beautiful smile. He would have a tear roll down his face and smile back at her with so much love and say, "Yeah, I won't have to go to the barber much anymore." And then they both shared a beautiful laugh together. That is truly, truly so adorable, and you can just see so much love within that little tight-knit family. Oh, it's so beautiful. She truly had great hopes, but as fate would have it, she was 22 and had just lost her husband. They had been madly in love, if you couldn't tell from that adorable conversation earlier. After this man horrifically passed, he was buried in a steel coffin due to his body radiating of radiation. And they had buried him in zinc and concrete, and they couldn't even get his shoes on due to his feet swelling from the radiation. She would go on to give birth to a baby girl 2 months later, and sadly, the infant would die 4 hours after her birth due to radiation exposure. Her daughter died due to heart malformation, leading to heart failure and cirrhosis of the liver due to the extreme radiation exposure. See, that horrible story wouldn't have happened if that piece of crap earlier would have just shut the damn plant down and started it over. God, I don't like that motherfucker. I used to have a boss just like him. I worked at a packing house, and he would keep the line running whenever it needed to be shut off, causing a lot of people's lives in risk and danger, and it would infuriate me. It would infuriate me. So I see him in this whole situation, and it's just, all this just could have been avoided. It could have been avoided, but that piece of shit wanted to move up in the company and think about himself before the entire population. The explosion was so huge, it even sparked a TV show and movies, and it's one of the highest rated on IMDb. The Morning Wife had gone on to say, there is not a day that goes by that she doesn't think of her amazing. The Morning Wife had gone on to say, there isn't a day that goes by I don't think of my amazing husband that I lost risking his life for everyone, and my beautiful daughter that didn't even get to experience her first birthday. But back to the reactors and how long they functioned. Okay, so they had falsely promised Unit 2 was to be shut down in 1991 after a serious turbine building fire. Unit 1 was closed in November 1996, and Unit 3 was closed on December 1999 as promised by the Ukraine president and Leonid Kuchma. But in all actuality, Unit 1 was shut down December 2004. The Unit 2 was shut down in 2009. Chernobyl reactors required a combination of effort from the world's 7 largest economies. Chernobyl's reactors required a combination of efforts from the world's 7 largest economies. This effort supported such things as short-term safety upgrades at Chernobyl, Unit 3 decommissioning the entire developing ways to address shutdown impacts and workers and their families, and identifying investments needed to meet the Ukraine's future electrical power needs. In 1997, the G7, aka 7 surrounding economies, the European Commission and the Ukraine agreed to jointly fund the Chernobyl shelter plant to help the Ukraine transform the existing catastrophe into a suitable, environmentally safe system. The European Bank manages the funding for the plan, which will protect workers and nearby populations and the environment for decades from very large amounts of radioactive material still in the area. They had built a new dome in 2006 to replace the old one, and they had called it the New Safe Confinement. So they were faced with an urgent problem. They needed to, as soon as possible, drain the tanks below reactor number 4. There were 33 million gallons of water sitting below the still burning reactor. The firemen that showed up had tried to drain all the water, but they were unsuccessful. The reason why it was so urgent is because the reactor's core was melting towards the basement, and it had headed towards the large pool of water below. If they would have mixed together, it would have ultimately caused a second steam explosion. The story is told that the men who dove under to release the valve and drain all the water below were volunteers that had to do this inevitable deadly task to save the country. The people that dove down really and all weren't volunteers. Instead, they were workers from the plant who knew all about the reactors and were asked. They could, of course, refused to do so, but the 3 of them knew they were the only ones could carry this out and be successful. And if they turned away due to fear, they knew that everyone they loved would succumb to this toxic radiation and be gone forever. One of the men just simply said, I just don't think that anyone else is more qualified because I'm the only one on this shift who knows the locations of all the valves. And us 3 are the only ones who know in depth everything that needs to be done. So on May 8th, 1986, the 3 heroic, brave men continued to put on their wetsuits and equipment so they can continue to go down the stairs of the remaining structure of the power plant. But they had run into an immediate setback. As they go through the water and seek out the valves, their flashlight or lamp would go out, leaving them in pitch black darkness. This left them no choice but to continue their campaign in pitch black darkness. When the divers first walked into the water, it was deep enough to submerge their knees. They stumble upon a corridor with multiple pipes and valves, and it is now time for the team to determine which valves to open. So it was like finding a needle in a haystack in the dark. But these brave bastards push on and continued with their bravery. Many people have called them the Suicide Squad. Not to be confused with the movie, but these guys were the original Suicide Squad. Overall, the survival rate of these three brave men were under 20%. Think about it. Would you even go to a casino with those odds? Hell no. Let alone risk your life at an 80% chance that you will never walk out of the plant again? God, these guys are brave. God, these guys are brave. One of the men was an engineer by the name of Alexei Anateko, who chose not to put on any more protection against the water and extreme radiation, other than your typical diving equipment. He would go on to say, I never felt like a hero. I was just simply doing my job. I was instructed to go in there and open the valves with my teammates, and therefore I was unafraid when I went. Articles would go on saying that these three men had died due to radiation, and this is a perfect example to double-check articles, facts, and everything else, and look around to see if the information you're getting is actually true or not. This, as a matter of fact, was false, and the three men did in fact succeed with their campaign and drained all the water. After a while of searching, they finally found the correct path, and they were overwhelmed with joy. He continues to say, we continued and had heard the rush of water coming out of the tank. In a few minutes, we were cheered and embraced by all the people waiting for the news that it was completed successfully. One of the divers had passed away in 2005, but the other two, I can proudly say, are alive and well to this day. Because of these heroic men putting their lives on the line, they had stopped another explosion that would have been worse than the last, but who knows how much more land the radiation would have consumed. And more than likely, all of Europe's population would have been wiped out if the other explosion would have occurred. This would have ultimately left a huge part of Europe inhabitable for over 500,000 years. So the first person who truly understood the gravity of the situation was Valery Legasov. He was also a Soviet scientist. He was a member of the Academy of Science of the USSR and became chief of the investigation response of commission of the horrible event. Prior to the explosion, he had always pressed the importance of safety at the nuclear power plant. He was actually the person that told everybody that they needed to evacuate Pripyat as soon as possible, trying to save lives when the explosion occurred. If he hadn't done that, the death toll would have been, without a doubt, much higher. He had went on to look into why this happened and also how it could have been prevented in the future. While they investigated, they couldn't stay at the hotel, so they had to stay at a mental institution building. He had come up with the idea of putting liquid nitrogen underneath reactor number 4 because it had been still burning at this time. This had actually turned out into a huge mistake. It had never burned through the cement floor, so then putting liquid nitrogen underneath backfired and further contaminated the environment. In 1988, after 2 years of the explosion that would leave the area in ruins for multiple years to come, he had decided to sadly commit suicide by hanging. This took place the day before he was to come forth and explain everything that he had discovered in his investigation. Now, there's a lot of hearsay on exactly where he hung himself. He did hang himself in the end. That part is true. Some people had said he either hung himself in his apartment, in the stairwell of his apartment, or even took place in his office. The thing that really should have been looked into was his mental state after the investigation. He was under an incredible amount of pressure, thanks to the Soviet government forcing him to censor his findings. In fact, his document he had written had mentioned many known facts about the explosion that everyone was unaware of. In fact, his document that he had written had mentioned many unknown facts about the explosion that everyone was unaware of. Thousands upon thousands of people truly believed that the explosion of Chernobyl and all its secrets would be too much for him to handle. Shortly after his body was discovered hanging wherever he may have hung himself. Okay, so the 3 men that oversaw the plant were taken to court, causing a 3-week-long trial of non-stop accusations, badgering, and unanswered questions. So Viktor Brukhanov, 50-year-old plant director, Nikolai Fomin, the chief engineer, and lastly, that piece of shit that could have avoided all of this if he would have just listened to his employee and just shut down and restarted everything. And this may have never happened. His name, if you don't remember, is Anatoly Dedlov. He was the lead man or crew chief. He's not to be confused with Anatoly Moskvin, well known as the Russian doll man, but to be honest, the Russian man's pretty messed up. And go back and listen to him, if you don't know what I'm talking about. I think it's episode 3. But I believe that the Russian doll man was not as bad. Still really bad. Yeah, he was a bad guy. He did some things that were really bad, but he didn't kill anybody, you know? So I think that this Anatoly is worse than the Russian doll man, because Anatoly could have avoided thousands of deaths. And I felt like if this self-entitled piece of shit would have just listened to the grunt workers, this wouldn't have happened. And to be completely honest, I truly feel that he should be the one facing the consequences and not the 2 other guys. They were just running the show, and they left the importance of the employees' safety and the community safety to this man, and he failed them all. So I think that he should be the one on trial, not the other 2 guys. Victor had gotten the job as plant director when he was only 34 years old, and he would carry this title for about 17 years. So I can confidently say this man has known very well what he had been doing confidently for almost 2 decades. When investigators had asked about his characteristics, 95% of the employees had said he was a very polite, well-mannered man, soft-spoken. And if you have been a factory boss or any lead type position like I have, you know you can't please everyone. And they were like, all of them were like, yeah, he's great. He's a great guy. Somebody's going to be pissy no matter what. So he's obviously not going to get the whole 100% approval from his crew. But 95%, that's honestly damn good. So I can confidently say that he's a very well adored by his fellow men and fellow employees. On top of all that, his supervision brought the power plant to a much higher standard, including safety. So I don't think he should have been on trial at all. But all 3 were found guilty, and here's the messed up thing. Nikolai was on vacation when this happened. He wasn't even at the plant. He was off duty. He was gone. He was somewhere else. He couldn't answer to any of this stuff, and he got charged. It's messed up. So all 3 of them were found guilty, but in the end, all 3 of them were found guilty. The judge would say before sentencing these 2 gentlemen and that one piece of shit, he would say that there was an atmosphere of lack of control and lack of responsibility within the power plant's walls. Victor was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor. Plus, following that, an additional 5 years were added due to abuse of power within the plant's walls. This was the maximum sentence because it was seen that he was the sole reason why this happened and why so many lives were ruined or ended. Nikolai, the chief engineer, was sentenced to 10 years hard labor for the crime of criminal mismanagement. And you know what? That's messed up. He wasn't even on duty. That's bullshit. And that piece of shit, Anatoly, was also charged with criminal mismanagement and served 10 years of hard labor. And in my opinion, this is all his fault. And I believe the other 2 men should be set free. And this piece of shit should get their 10 years. Oh, and don't forget about that extra 5. And I think he should take all those and do all that time. Not these other guys. But he ends up spending 10 years doing hard labor instead of 35 years, which I believe he rightfully deserves. And really quick, as I'm telling you how I feel about this piece of shit and how worthless he is, I continued reading and came across this, and I was like, I fucking knew it. And it did nothing but put a big ass grin on my face. I hope it does the same for you guys. So here we go. So I read, after the trial, a bit of time passed, and Anatoly is firmly viewed as the villain behind the catastrophe. See? Everybody is pointing their finger at him and saying, he's the reason why. He's the reason why. I fucking knew it. He was overall the most experienced at the plant, but hundreds of complaints about him came in, basically saying that he was a controlling dictator to all personnel and he treated them like crap. As a matter of fact, 90% of his colleagues, I'm assuming the other 10% may have been his buddies, but they had actually gave him up, saying on the night of the explosion he had known of the extreme power drop and continued to dictate over them instead of hearing what his employees had to say. He just kept pushing them to move on with the test instead. After he pushes his employees on to do what they need to do, and here's a report from an employee. As he's walking across the catwalk, he came to the end, and there was an employee standing there taking notes and had walked up on him demanding to know what he was writing down, possibly notes to snitch him out. And when he had asked for the notebook paper, the employee had said no. So then he continues to reach for the paper and lunges towards it and falls over the railing, falling headfirst down 10 feet into the reactor and hit the reactor with so much force, part of metal impaled a good 11 inches deep into his skull and kills him instantly. No, that doesn't happen. But who out there was wishing for that other than me? But due to all this, he had been labeled an arrogant narcissist. In the early 1990s, $400 million was spent on improvements to the remaining reactors in Chernobyl, considerably enhancing their safety. So that was a Chernobyl meltdown. And I could have went way deeper, but then this would have been a 3-part episode. But you know what's not a 3-part episode? That Twisted Top 5 recap. Number 1, in 1986, one of the biggest explosions in the world's history killed multiple people, ruined the lives and homes of so many more, causing the ecosystem to start falling apart as well. Number 2, all due to a shitty supervisor refusing to listen to his employees, caused this horrifying event that is ongoing today. Number 3, children in the area suffered from mutations or disconfigurations such as small hands, fingers, or limbs, a huge head with a tiny brain. And there were actually children that were 15 years of age but looked about 2 or 3 years old, all because of the explosion. Number 4, this caused thousands upon thousands to relocate and have health issues the rest of their lives. Also caused animals to be born with 3 or more eyes or even 6 or more legs. Okay, number 5, I truly can't help but blame all this on that arrogant, self-entitled piece of shit that we all already know who I'm talking about. And if he would have just listened and restarted the test, none of this would have happened. And honestly, everybody would still be alive. All right, so let's go ahead and enlighten the mood a little bit, just a little bit for a minute, and jump into this week's Florida Man. Okay, real quick. Okay, so Florida Man, I go to Google, like I'm doing right now. Let's go to Google, google.com, and then I type in Florida Man. And then I go off of today's date, which is 1/1/8/2020. But we're going to do 21 for last year and see what we get. And the very first thing that pops up, I read, and you're going to get a live reaction. Oh my God. Okay. You never know what you're going to get. News article. News article. Florida man arrested after botching in-home castration. What? Florida man arrested after botching in-home castration surgery. Oh, let's see what's going on. Florida deputies have arrested a man for attempting to perform a castration inside his Highlands County home. Deputies were called to a 70-year-old man's home by the name of Gary Raiswick, located on an ordinary road in Sebring on Sunday, August 18th. When they arrived, Raiswick told the deputy that he had just performed a castration on a man and encountered major issues. Deputies found a victim on a bed, bleeding heavily with a towel over his groin. The victim was then flown to a nearby hospital and was said to be stable. During the investigation, deputies found 2 body parts in a pink container presumed to have belonged to the victim. Raiswick had set up the room to look like a surgical center and had medical equipment and painkillers inside, according to the police. A camera was also set up to record the procedure. What in the hell? What is wrong with this guy? Van Raiswick told deputies he had met the victim on the dark web on a site geared towards people who have a castration fetish. What? In addition, Raiswick told deputies he tried to perform the procedure on the victim last week, but had to delay. He also said he had done a similar procedure on a man in a local motel a few years ago, and it also did not end well. I can only wonder why. You're not a doctor, guy. Quit doing this. Florida man, there you go. According to the Highland Security Sheriff's Office, bodily injury, a second-degree felony. His bond has been set at $250,000. Oh, wow. Okay, so you think radiation's bad? Go ahead and hit this guy up. He'll cut your nuts off. You'll be all right. There's your Florida man of the week. You never know what we're going to find. Last week, there was a guy that was eating chicken legs in front of the clerk. That was awesome. The last time I checked, it was a man set a woman on fire. And this week, it's a guy cutting off somebody's nuts. That's great. You never know what you're going to get with the Florida man. But now, enough of the Florida man and cutting off nuts. Now it's time to jump into today's updates. Ba-da-dun-dun-dun-dun. Oh, nope. Gotta let the music play. God, I love that newsroom melody. Don't you? Don't you guys love it? I love it. And welcome back. And since you guys made it to the updates, you are all Twisted Couch Club members. Welcome to the Twisted Couch Club. If you make it to the updates, there you go. Now that we're on the couch, let's see what these updates are about. Okay, where you can find these pictures, because social media pages won't let me. I don't know what it is. I can't put it on Facebook. I cannot put it on Instagram. I got taken down. So I did this for you guys, just for you sick little bastards out there. You want to know what all this stuff looks like? Go to the description, have it categorized, go to pictures, click it, boom, takes you right wherever you want to go. Shows you all the pictures. It's horrible. No, it's great. It's great, but horrible. Okay, so sneak peek, the nightmare nurse. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I started, watching videos and covering this person, and I literally got emotional and had to stop halfway through and get back to it. So this one, is going to be a really bad story, but a good one to cover. So prepare yourself for the nightmare nurse. Find out why they call her that. Now, I'm going to start. Okay, so coming up, I think I'm just going to do extra episodes of countries that start listening to the show. So I'm going to do a Finland. I'm going to end up doing a Finland story, a Canada story, and a United Kingdom story. And as those come out, I'll throw them on the Facebook. If you guys already hit that follow button, you'll know all about it. So hit the follow button too. Don't forget that. And you'll know when I'm going to release these episodes. I'll also, mention them as we go on throughout the episodes. But Finland, I'm flying over to you guys, and we're going to find something completely twisted and fucked up to talk about. That'll be the first bonus country. Now, first off, just thank you guys. Thank you so much for listening and just getting back with me and talking to me and just everything. I couldn't ask for a better little group of fan base. Like, you guys are amazing. Just sending me topics, telling me how your Christmas was, just everything, I love it, guys. I love it. We are now over I think 150 downloads, and I've only been up a month. So just keep spreading that sick twist, guys. You're truly amazing, and you're doing such a good job. I love you all. Thank you. Also, thank you guys for all the love and support you guys have been giving me. It baffles me. It truly baffles me. I didn't think that this was going to take off in any way. I thought I was going to take 5-10 years for somebody to listen to one episode. And it was just every day, boom, 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 boom. I'm getting more downloads and more. I can't even keep up with it. It's just so cool. And, contact me, you guys. I want to hear from you. The ones that haven't hit me up. What's going on? I want to know about, what do you guys think of the twist? I'm here. Also, wherever you're listening right now, please podcast, give me a 5-star rating, because that's just going to make it to where I can move up in the charts and we can grow faster. It does not matter what you say. Just say Bob Ross likes to paint at graveyards. If you guys listened to episode 3, you know what that reference is now. Or you can say that you like to ride a bicycle and chase pigeons around. It doesn't matter what you say. Or, whatever you want. But also give it a thumbs up if you're watching the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give us a heart, whatever it is that you got to do. Give us a like. Let's do it and get out there. And it's all going to be thanks to you guys. Okay. If any of you guys have people, places, topics that you want me to cover, send them to me in the email at twistedcouchtalkproductions@gmail.com. twistedcouchtalkproductions@gmail.com. Send it there. I will read it. They go straight to me. I'll check them out, and I will be more than happy to add it to this ginormous list of people that I'm going to be covering. Also, personal stories. I want to know your guys' personal paranormal stories. Here and maybe this week or next, I'm going to release a little bonus of my paranormal stories, including the EVP stuff that went down. I had priests come over. We had to do so much to the house. It's pretty bad. It was pretty bad, and it's all true. And I'm gonna release that episode soon. I want to build it and get it all. All my facts straight, and I have to talk to my ex-wife and get information because it was, when we were together, because a lot of this stuff happened to her too. So I want to get her part of it too, because it's It's a really interesting story, and it scared me. It really did. I don't mess with paranormal stuff, so yeah, it's a good one. But enough about my stories. I want to know yours. Do you guys have a paranormal story? Have you ever been kidnapped and got away? I want to tell that story. I want to tell some wins too, not just losses. I want to cover everything Twisted. And I might even make a bonus episode if I get enough, which I know I'm going to. There's just so much Twisted talk to be had. Feedback, like I said a little bit earlier, hit me up. I want to know what you guys think. Where you can find the podcast. Okay, so you can find it everywhere. Everywhere. You can find it anywhere. It doesn't matter. Look and you'll find it. Except for Pandora. For some reason, I cannot get these bastards to message me back to save my life. I uploaded my podcast, I don't know, 5 weeks ago. Never heard anything back. So maybe you guys can email Pandora and be like, hey, come on, we want this guy here, And they're going to listen to the people more than they're going to listen to me. Also, YouTube. We're on YouTube now. Check out the YouTube. I put a lot of work into it. It looks great. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm already getting views. It's crazy. And I've already gotten some subscribers. So go to the YouTube channel and go ahead and join. I would love for you guys to join that community. Keep spreading that twist. Keep spreading that twist. Keep spreading that twist. Now, Patreon. I will explain it a little bit better here now that we're at the end of the episode. Patreon is made up of 4 tiers, and it ranges from $3 to $20. What kind of twist head are you? I have the Twisted Cinnamon Roll, the Twisted Average Joe, the Twisted Stranger, or the F5 Twisted Tornado. Go check them out. Or if you want to donate any amount monthly, go to the bottom of the list, and I left that there so you guys don't have, you can do 50 cents if you really want to, Donate whatever you want, and I will be greatly, greatly appreciative because you guys can donate to me, and I can get better equipment. I can go up to video camera, just all that. I want to do all that. I think that would be so much fun, but I need your guys' support. Also, we have a PayPal now. Thanks to my beautiful, beautiful girlfriend. She set it up for me because I don't know a lot of this stuff. So without her, this show would be chaos. So go to the PayPal and donate any amount ever, whatever you want. It is, I believe it's twistedcouchtalkproductions at Gmail, and that's what you send it to. I'm not familiar with PayPal, but you do that. Just do that. And everybody who donates to the PayPal or Patreon, I will give you guys a shout out. You can request a personal shout out, birthday, whatever you want. If you have a podcast, if you have a clothesline, whatever you want something to promote for free and have hundreds of people listen, perfect. There you go. Send a little donation, and I will give you guys a beautiful shout out. Like I did Austin at the beginning of the episode. Thanks to that twist head, we are everywhere. And I couldn't be more grateful. So Austin, thank you very much. Here's your shout out. Go check him out on Facebook. He's an amazing guy. I'm just so grateful that he did that for us. And he did that for all of you guys too, because now all of you guys can hear me everywhere. Merch. I cover it every week. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but everybody's blowing me up about it. So I hear you. And I gave a little bit of a description of what I'm going to do. So real quick, a green humanoid, 5-foot-tall creature, crumped over, hunched over, looking over his shoulder. He's just got fangs and these big beady eyes with cat eye-like pupils and a pig nose, and just has this grimace look on his face. And he's got this pile of meat dripping with blood in his hands, and he's hunched over, looking back at you, running away with it. And there's your Sagawa. So, I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Let me know what you think, because I don't want to give you merch you don't like. Now, enough of the business bullcrap, and let's go ahead and jump out of all this radiation and toxicity, go back to the U.S., and put this twisted story back in the books. I hope all of you enjoyed the telling of that story as much as I did. I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday back on the couch with another twisted journey into the abyss. But for now, if you're a boss, listen to your employees. Stop drinking radioactive milk. Put your couches back, kick out your friends, and we'll see you guys on Friday back on the couch. And as always, stay twisted, you twisted mother lovers.